So on the questions on the issue of Afghanistan and Myanmar, I would also add my observation about another similarity of U.S. problems for the region or for the world, for that matter. Kamala Harris also mentioned that the U.S. Intent is still to be a global actor, basically, and everybody who study about U.S. Foreign policy would know that the U.S. Approach to many issues is only, it's never quite quite different between the Republicans and Democrats. Both are interested in going into certain countries with usually two approaches. And we can see the two approaches being prominent in Afghanistan, for instance, military approach, right? Going in to secure stability, quote unquote. And then if matters are not solved or to their content, they would pull away. The second approach that we see from U.S. foreign policy is to sanction as a form of pressure. And we see that approach being applied to Myanmar. For many, many years, Myanmar has been under U.S. sanctions. And then under Obama, they start lifting a bit that pressure. But now with the collapse of the democratic system there, they try to impose another sanctions, different kinds of sanctions to all the individuals being involved in the rule. So I think the U.S. itself are struggling to create a different image of the U.S. back during the Cold War. Is that why they still talk about Saigon? I think it's weird. It's already beyond Cold War, and yet they keep talking with the same narrative and keeps also refer to the same a different narrative, saying this is a new chapter. Do you think I'm puzzled with this, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly there are several strains in U.S. foreign policy. But there's an idealistic, ideological strain that resonated, I think, with a lot of people around the world, at least people of my generation. 1961, President Kennedy inauguration. Those idealism, the eloquent words. I think that's. I noticed we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival and the success of liberty. And then he said he gave a pledge to countries, allies, pledge loyalty of faithful friends. That was, I think, the high watermark. And there was a humanitarian strain in U.S. society, the libertarian strain, that they wanted to do good in the world. And that's their own, I think, still their own notion of themselves still. But then there was a militarist strain, militarism. I think President Dwight Eisenhower, before leaving office, did warn of a military-industrial complex that had a vested interest in resorting to military means to solve problems abroad. But then after Saigon, after Lebanon, after Kenya, after many ups and downs in the U.S. Position in the world, we came then, after President George Bush, invasion of Iraq and all that, there was a high watermark of the militarist strain in U.S. foreign policy to settle problems by using military might. Then we came, interestingly, Dinna, I think, to President Obama.
Okay.
When faced with Syria, I think he was with Syria towards the end of his presidency, he had this to say, that, we cannot, when Obama said that we do not have the ability to solve all the world's problems. It's beyond America, that they would now look. This is even before Trump. And of course, with President Trump, America first, everything coming back, not even the allies. So there are different strains in U.S. policy going, pinging back and forth, back and forth. The reaction now to Afghanistan, which of course for the US is that they took a hit in image in terms of credit worthiness, credibility, in terms of competence, in terms of capability, questions that can be asked of the US. They made rebound, but where would they do it? They have to recoup. They have to recoup that standing in international affairs. Again, is it Southeast Asia that they'll make a stand again, draw a line in the sand? A line in the sand that Mr. Obama did not keep to in Syria, for example. He then walked back and said, no, it's beyond us, to that kind of thinking. The thinking that I think President Biden has continued when he says, no, we cannot solve it. If the Afghan army does not fight, if they don't stand up, if the government runs away, if the government is corrupt, we cannot help them. So that again, going back, and we have to see now what position they would take when confronted with a situation in our region.
Right. The region of Southeast Asia basically look at these two events going on in Afghanistan and Myanmar from two lenses, I think. The first one is from the economic side. All they want to make sure is that all these two events are not interfering in the economic opportunities and recuperation even after the pandemic or during the pandemic. Second of all is the issue of counter-terrorism, to make sure that all this instability going on in these two countries are not bringing in radicalism, extremism in particular, terrorism against the country. So what I think is rather weird here is that the US is trying to potentially apply what China has been doing to beat China presence in the region or potentially globally. So they may use different kinds of narrative to justify their actions in these two countries. One with sanction, the other one withdrawal of troops. But the question here, back to the statement of Kamala Harris recently, that basically they want to make sure that the economy is growing. They are trying to re-strategizing inside of the United States and build new kinds of partnership with Southeast Asian countries to beat China, basically. So it's are you looking at are we actually looking at US trying to mimic China's strategy to win the hearts of countries through economic approaches so that they can beat China with their own game?
Well, if that's the case, that's good for us. Then we have many suitors to choose from. People offering this and that. Although there are limits, I would think to what the US can do economically compared to China, because at least China is so much closer by. But the more the merrier in those terms, in trade, investment, tourism, people offering to help and to be involved in national economic development. So good, I think all the countries would welcome that. But perhaps it goes more beyond that, more strategic, more geographical, more national interest. Going back again historically, quickly to after Saigon, 1975, because that's always used as, Afghanistan, Kabul is at the second Saigon, coming back again. After Saigon, 1975, and even 1 or 2 years before it, you see all the nations of Southeast Asia try to adapt. We open up relations with Beijing. We adjusted. We learned how to live. ASEAN was only 5 countries then. But after that, slowly over 10, even 20 years, ASEAN has incorporated Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar into one. So that was an adjustment within the region among ourselves. Now, after Afghanistan, and maybe I think the enormous loss of faith, at least loss of faith of the United States, and preoccupation continues in Afghanistan. What do we do now? if the US were to move back and say, hey, look, I'm opening up a new frontier in Southeast Asia. The Southeast Asian countries now would have to see, oh, what do we do now? Because China is much more powerful than it was before, after 1975. Even then we had to adjust and to go to China, open up diplomatic formal relations with China. Now, of course, as I said before, China Belt and Road offering, they are even offering to join the PTT, which the US had originated, had proposed, and then left. So what is there left now? You see, so some important elements, and ASEAN has to look at it. There'll be an APEC meeting next year. There'll be this ASEAN meeting in Brunei towards the end of the year. Many countries are expected to participate, at least on the web. And next year, APEC. So we'll have to assess. So first of all, who has more to offer? The marriage dowry, I think, who comes offering more, then we have to assess that. But in more than in terms of actual kind of tangible benefits, economic investment and otherwise, we have to assess also now. That is the main question now, I think, in the aftermath of Afghanistan, and as the dust settles, is that of credibility.
And I think in addition to what you say, basically, is that the issue of terrorism, because it won't go away, basically, then the US cannot just, drop the ball and say, sorry, we're over with it, right? They still have to somehow develop a new mechanism to make sure that this threat is not spreading throughout the region or the world, yeah?
Yes, and if they choose, and they say over the horizon capability, and then they said, okay, we had a drone attack. So if they're relying only on that, what would be the reaction in this region if they conducted a drone attack on a target in Mindanao or in Borneo, or even southern Thailand, or somewhere in Malaysia? So that immediately, if they choose that strain in their foreign policy, militarist, forceful application of their strength, which is now their only strength, perhaps, of political, not of military power, then we'll be in a very, very awkward position, right? But if they choose to come and offer economic development, cooperation, investment, that's fine, I think. And then the co-prosperity sphere, and even working with China, as long as they don't say, and then don't go back. The other concern, I think, is, you remember after 9/11, which is coming up soon, they hope to be the bookend of a terrorism, war on terrorism, but no longer, I think. It could mark the beginning of a second phase. It's not going to mark the end of something, but it mark the beginning of something. So, right. So if the emphasis is on a war on terror by over the horizon means, by and ignoring other aspects, it will put the Southeast Asian countries in a very difficult position, because then, if they don't solve the problem in Afghanistan, which continues, would then be a pull factor, be creating a lot of enthusiasm among potential jihadists, among potential extremists, to say, look, this is the caliphate, this is the emirate, people going there, people responding there, the spirits of the people, ideological kind of infusion of enthusiasm, extra state going out of their own national state. That I think would be a cause for concern in many of our countries. Although even Indonesia, I think, is able to handle that in the long term. You have done it, so it's not a very something to be too concerned about at the moment. But still, it's still there. It's like a siren call. It's like a beacon, from the top of the mountain, which they cannot just leave there. They cannot just pack up their bags and go. But now even one of their former, defense ministers has said, Leon Panetta, he said, we may have won a battle, but the war on terrorism is not over.
Right.
So they see a continuing war because President Biden will say, no, we're not having a forever war. We're going out. But then within his own party, the former defense minister of Obama said, no, the war on terrorism is not over.
It's not over.
So again, we have to see what are the consequences for us.
Okay, Kun Kobsak, on the last segment, let's talk about back again to our neck of the wood. The reaction of countries, leaders in Southeast Asia to the events unfolding in Afghanistan and also in Myanmar. What was the latest response from Thailand that you can mention here?
Basically, I think it's similar to many other ASEAN countries to keep quiet, keep your head down, don't stick it out on the fortress, on the parapet, and basically, I think it's wait and watch. This is the usual the ASEAN go-to stance, to wait and watch events, which is true. Singapore, of course, had to come out a bit more clearer, stronger because of the visit of Kamala Harris. So Singapore Foreign Minister said this is a clear threat to stability, the situation in Afghanistan, to security, clear and present danger, I think was his phrase. To Vietnam, because again, they had to make some response to the visit of Kamala Harris. So they said, Vietnam said, oh no, but we will not take sides in any alliance against another superpower. So that's slowly coming out bit and pieces because of the visit. So again, we have to wait and see how events unfold in Afghanistan. Although I think what we can say is that, look, first of all, we cannot leave. The international community cannot just leave, pack up and go, and leave Afghanistan as a mess, because then the potential for terrorist groups again breeding there and then going out, making attacks around the world, another 9/11 perhaps somewhere, is there. It's a breeding ground. So international community, let's have another international conference. After 2001, we had an international conference in Bonn, although the Taliban were not invited. International conference led by United Nations, other countries, friendly countries. So everybody has a role to play in trying to stabilize Afghanistan, trying to develop it economically. ASEAN can play a little role there also as part of the international community. We have things to offer. Indonesia has moderation, has an ideological understanding of way Islam can be a national religion that brings people in society together. For example, Thailand, we can offer maybe like crop substitution programs so that opium does not have to be the main cash crop in Afghanistan, things like that. At the same time, I think Myanmar also needs an international conference now. We've given enough time to ASEAN special envoy. People are saying, oh, ASEAN do it. But certainly ASEAN has limitations, not least because Myanmar is a part of ASEAN and ASEAN works on consensus. So everything has also to be approved by Myanmar. So those are the internal contradictions that limit the role of ASEAN. So we, I think, now have to move also maybe to an international conference led by the UN on Myanmar and bring all parties to the table.
Right. Hopefully that this events unfolding in Afghanistan and Myanmar would bring all these countries into more firm conscience there that the foreign policy of countries in the region cannot remain the same. And same thing with the way they engage in ASEAN. As you mentioned, some of these countries choose to be quiet. Indonesia is taking the position of still being hopeful that Afghanistan, being led by Afghans, would finally find the right tune of being inclusive to everyone and to create stability for the country. Same thing with Malaysia. I think the same aspiration is being raised. So that's another angle of looking at this. A revoking of colonialism. That's what some says also about the development. Anyway, it's many things can still be discussed, but at least today, hopefully, we shared some our thoughts to the viewers and listeners of Nyambung. I thank you very much, Kun Kobsak, for staying with us and sharing your thoughts. Hopefully, we can see you again. Sorry?
Yes. Well, it goes on. It will go on and on for many months, years, I think, these issues. So we have to keep following it because it's coming closer to home. It's
right.
Coming closer to home. We can't just ignore it anymore.
Right. And our bilateral as well as regional mechanism should respond to this soon. Okay, thank you very much, Kun Kobsak. I'll see you again soon. And thank you very much. Thank you very much also to the listeners and viewers of Nyambung. I noticed there were attentive viewers who have been watching us. Thank you so much once again for your support to us. The share, like, and comments and being subscriber to Nyambung means a lot to us. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great Saturday and see you soon.
Thank you so much for your support once again. Our podcast is available at YouTube and Spotify at Nyambung with Dinna Prapto Raharja. Make sure to send us your questions or your thoughts through YouTube comment section. And if you enjoy the episode, don't forget to like, share the link to your community, and subscribe so you make sure you don't miss our contents because we post every week.